There are just 11 days remaining in the transfer window. The market has so far been dominated by Chelsea, but after a tough start to the season, will they add even more players before the 1st of September? This hour, we've got updates from Newcastle, Everton, Manchester City, loads more as well. Lots to get through on Good Morning Transfers in the company of Dave Reed, Olivia Bazaglo and James Savundra. But we start with Chelsea. They haven't had the greatest start to the Premier League season. Yesterday, they lost 3-1 to West Ham on Super Sunday. Right, Olivia, we've praised Chelsea a lot in terms of the transfer business and their performance against Liverpool last weekend. How frustrating was that result?
Yeah, I think most rival fans really enjoyed that performance yesterday. It was a really frustrating game because it was a really positive, especially after West Ham scored their opener. I thought it was such a brilliant response to Chelsea. I think last season when Chelsea went behind, there was just no one thought they were going to get back into the game. So to respond as brilliantly as they did was really impressive. I thought Chelsea were on the front foot coming into sort of the latter stages of that first half. And I think if Enzo Fernandez steps up and scores that penalty, which Sky Sports actually, during that coverage, said that it could have been retaken or maybe should have been retaken because Souček was encroaching and he was the one that cleared it. I'm clutching at straws here. But if Enzo scores that, we're sat here with a completely different narrative because I think Chelsea go on to win that game comfortably. I really liked Nicholas Jackson's performance. I think he will score goals. I think it's just frustrating. Carney Chukwuemeka scoring a brilliant goal and then going off injured, and Kunku getting injured in pre-season, Reece James getting injured against Liverpool. I think what's worrying was the second half performance. It wasn't anything like what we saw against Liverpool. Chelsea didn't even really look like scoring. I can't really remember Areola having to make a single save, but I think what we have to remember here is, yes, Chelsea have spent a lot of money, but it's a lot of new players. It's a new manager. You know, injuries haven't gone our way this season so far, even though we've only played a couple of games. So I just think it's still going to take a little bit of time to click. Chelsea got a really nice run of fixtures now. I think Luton at home on Friday night is the perfect game, really. No disrespect to Luton. Famous last words.
Do you get that?
You've jinxed that.
Famous last words. I think that's the perfect game for Chelsea to come into now and hopefully bounce back. But that second half performance was worrying.
Rob Edwards will have that pinned up in the dressing room.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, rather than asking Chelsea and West Ham fans to get in touch on the hashtag transfer talk, might be Luton fans. Not very happy about that at all. But Jay, in terms of new signings and players who shone, James Ward-Prowse sticks out for West Ham.
Absolutely. It took him just 7 minutes to show just what he can offer this West Ham team. Set piece, corner for Aguerd, very difficult for Chelsea to defend. And I was really pleased the fact he actually got a second assist in open play as well. I think there's so much talk about what James Ward-Prowse can do from set pieces, and we know his ability from corners, direct free kicks. Just one behind David Beckham now when it comes to Premier League goals from direct free kicks. But that was pleasing to see him offer what he can do in the middle of the park. He's not just somebody who's good at the dead ball situations, and he'll create so much for this team with the likes of Aguerd, Souček, Zuma and Antonio up front as well. And it does. You and your teams have played against the James Ward-Prowse side. When the other team, when they get a corner, when someone's got a corner, it just strikes fear into the heart of you, and it must do the same for defensive as well. So I'm really excited to see him play alongside Edson Alvarez. I think they will complement each other really well. And early signs there that they could fill this void left by Declan Rice. Really encouraging early signs.
Yeah, I do still find it quite strange with him not in a Southampton pitch. We've been so used to it. In terms of other big signings, David, it wasn't quite the start Moises Caicedo would have wanted.
No, all eyes were on him, weren't they, when he came on in the second half. He got the last half an hour, and it was difficult for him because I think, Chelsea was struggling at that point in the game, and, it probably would have been a little bit easier for him had Chelsea have been cruising to victory to come on and just feel his way in. But at that point in the game, it was quite difficult for him coming on. The obvious thing to point out is that he gave away the penalty. I know Jamie Carragher said he had a bit of a nightmare during the game. But I think Jamie Redknapp pointed it out quite well on Super Sunday when he said, it's going to take time for him to settle into Chelsea's style of play, into what Chelsea are trying to do. And he hadn't played any minutes since the 29th of July, Moises Caicedo. So to come in to the cut and thrust straight away like that, it's hard for him. But all eyes are on him, and I understand why people are pointing at that performance and saying, where's the money gone?
I mean, it's one game. It's half an hour. I mean, Chelsea fans are not worried about Moises Caicedo at all. They know what he can bring to this Chelsea defence, and it really wouldn't surprise me now. He didn't quite look match fit. I think he looks slightly off it. You could tell he hasn't played for a while. But I think the best thing to do now is to get him playing, to start him, whether that's alongside Romeo Lavia, in a 2 in midfield. I think that's the way forward, with playing Enzo in that number 10 role slightly further up. But I think now we know what he brings. And I know people were laughing about it and finding it funny because Chelsea had spent that much on it. But it's only because they're doing it now because they know that he will be worth it. We've seen he's on his way to being world class already, and it was a disappointing half an hour. And I think Chelsea fans, were gutted that the way he came on and how it happened. But it's absolutely nothing to worry about.
And I think for Pochettino as well, he would have started the season having an idea of how he wanted to line up his team, how he wanted to play, and some of that's already gone out the window just with the injuries that Chelsea have had. So he's kind of learning a little bit on the hop. The players are learning about the manager, about each other on the hop. So it's one of those where Chelsea feel will get better as the season goes on.
Well, we've talked about Chelsea and West Ham a lot during this transfer window. Let's just have a look at their spending, how the two of them compare so far. We know that West Ham let go of Declan Rice for big money, and it's taken them a while to actually spend that money. But two players have come in so far. We expect there will be more from West Ham. And as you can see, it was a huge rebuild again at Chelsea, wasn't it, under Mauricio Pochettino? And a lot of money spent on 11 signings there. Of course, neither of those take into account the players who have gone out. But let's have a listen to what former Chelsea defender Ashley Cole had to say about Chelsea's transfer activity on Super Sunday.
I'll definitely say they're more mobile, they're younger, they have more legs. They're physically more capable in terms of physical output. I think they're more of a running team now than what we had, the younger profile of players. But again, I don't think just a pre-season is enough with that many changes going on. I think I worked with 5 of them players that started today. So it is going to need time, and we can't stand here and go, yeah, that's it. OK, you spend money, but sometimes it's not enough. And I think we see that from the back end of last season, and now it will take a little bit of time for them to settle in, bed in, really find a formation that really suits the players available. When players get injured, who's going to fit in, and then it will take time.
So Ashley Cole giving his opinions there. James, what did Mauricio Pochettino say to you last week? Yeah,
I was at his press conference on Friday. It looks like there's 2 remaining areas where Chelsea may look to strengthen an attacking midfielder, maybe a striker. In fact, they went for Michael Olise, but he then signed a new contract with Crystal Palace, and he admitted they will look to see what the options are in the market. But what was quite interesting, he pointed out Armando Broja. He name-checked him, saying that perhaps he could be the answer, and they may need to be patient in the window. Of course, he's not fully fit at the moment, which meant that yesterday Mason Burstow was the only forward option that Chelsea had to use off the bench to try and get themselves back into the game. And the goalkeeper situation is a really interesting one as well, because I gave Pochettino the chance, I guess, to say Robert Sanchez is my number 1 heading into this season, but he said he's still got a decision to make. That's after Kepa went to Real Madrid on loan. So whether or not they look to bring in a goalkeeper, as Arsenal have done, to compete with Sanchez and have 2 number 1s, or another understudy, they've got a number of young options. And Marcus Bettinelli, he's not fit at the moment either as well. So we wait to see if Chelsea will look to sign somebody to compete with Sanchez or not. But despite the fact they have spent nearly £1 billion since the takeover, it does look like they still could be busy in these last 14 days of the window. Yeah, and Olivia, in terms of a striker, one source has told us that Chelsea are actually interested in Florian Balogun from Arsenal. Do you think they need a striker?
It's really difficult, because I looked at that performance against West Ham and thinking, Chelsea, how many times have I said that Chelsea need to take their chances? The price tag, I don't know, 50 million for Balogun could put Chelsea off. And I think Chelsea went for like a slightly more inexperienced, maybe less known striker in Nicholas Jackson. And I think, I know he hasn't scored yet, but I think he's showing signs. He's making those runs constantly. He's getting into the right positions. And to me, it's only a matter of time before he starts finding the net. So I don't think Chelsea will go for Balogun as well, even though 21 goals in Ligue 1 last season is really impressive. But to me, what's glaringly obvious, and James just mentioned it, is a number 10. And Nkunku got injured. Now Carney was playing in that position. Carney Chukwuemeka went off, left the London Stadium in crutches. You've got Ian Maatson that could play there, and maybe Enzo Fernandez that could push up. But yesterday, I was just looking at that game going, Chelsea didn't create a chance in that second half, and that was the problem. It wasn't like we weren't finishing our chances in the second half. Chelsea didn't have any. So I think going into this last 10 days of the transfer window, that actually a number 10 might be more important than a striker, because you've got Nicholas Jackson. And I think Armando Broja does have a big part to play in this Chelsea squad as well.
Well, as for West Ham, David Moyes told us after the game they are not finished in the transfer market.
yeah, I'm hoping to get another couple of players if I can. So we're working on that just now, and if we can add to it, we will do. And hopefully they'll look as good as the two we've brought in at the moment, because the two we've brought in at the moment in training and their work and their performance today, I think they've done excellent.
Well, one of the next ones to come in could be Konstantinos Mavropanos. He's had a West Ham medical. That was yesterday. Out of a £17 million move, well, that's an initial fee, but there's also potentially £2 million in add-ons as well. That's from Stuttgart. Dave will remember him from his time at Arsenal, but why are they looking for a centre-back? Because they have been all window.
Yeah, he was signed by Arsenal, I think, January 2018. That was the same window that Arsenal signed Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Alex Lacazette and Henrik Mkhitaryan. So it almost overshadowed a little bit, but he came as a very young, very green player to Arsenal at that point, only made 7 Premier League appearances, then had a couple of different loan spells, one at Nuremberg and then at Stuttgart, which ended up being made permanent, a former teammate of the now Liverpool midfielder as well, Wataru Endo. And he's still only 25, 6'4", imposing figure at the back, very physical. And in terms of West Ham's centre-back options, now Figueira obviously was sent off yesterday. Thilo Kehrer wasn't in the squad. Angelo Ogbonna came on, so you feel there is room in that West Ham squad for another centre-back. And I think from the player's point of view anyway, he's really benefited from playing first-team games in the Bundesliga, helped Stuttgart avoid relegation. So I think from West Ham's point of view, they'll be pleased with what they've brought in so far. Alvarez and James Ward-Prowse, as David Moyes mentioned there, they've come in and really impressed. So he'll be hoping Mavropanos can do the same.
Well, Ajax have rejected an initial bid from West Ham for midfielder Mohamed Kudus. The technical director has been in Amsterdam this week trying to complete a move. Tim Steiten is the West Ham technical director. West Ham are expected to go back in with an improved offer. How exciting would this be for West Ham, James?
I think it'd be really exciting because he's already up and running in this season, already assists at the weekend. It's a brilliant ball from the right-hand side for Klaassen. So he's got a goal and assist in the first 2 matches the season for Ajax, linked with a number of Premier League clubs. So it does look like his future could be in England. Only 22, but I think he's had a really, really solid start to his career already. 18 goals for Ajax last season, and he's really versatile as well. He's played as deep as a deep-line playmaker to playing as far forward as a striker. I think he'd probably play on the right side for West Ham. I think he offers a different type of profile to Alvarez and Ward-Prowse that they brought in, more central midfield players. But also he's pretty physical, so I think he's going to be able to handle himself in the Premier League. I think he's a player you can see why David Moyes would want him, because I think he will be able to fit in quite quickly, dribbles well, moves the ball forward really quickly. And I think ideally he's somebody who would complement Paqueta brilliantly rather than necessarily be somebody who would replace him if he was to leave the club. Yeah, we were just talking about Chelsea there. We've got some news just into us. You were saying that they might be looking for another goalkeeper. Well, that man is Jorda Petrovic. Chelsea in talks with New England Revolution over signing their goalkeeper. Chelsea in the market for new goalkeepers. Edouard Mendy went to Al Ahly on a permanent deal. Kepa went out to Real Madrid as well. The deal under discussion for Petrovic is understood to be in the region of £12 million. That news just into us there, with Chelsea targeting a goalkeeper. More news just into us, but it comes from Nottingham Forest. They've agreed a deal worth £10 million with Sevilla for defender Gonzalo Montiel. He's a right back. He's expected to have a medical in the next 24 hours. He actually scored the decisive penalty in the World Cup final when Argentina beat France in the shootout. So you remember him from then. He also scored the winning penalty for Sevilla in the shootout win over Roma in the Europa League final. It's pretty good for Forest if they get into a penalty shootout. But that's not it from Steve Cooper, because Forest are in talks with Bologna over the signing of midfielder Nicolas Dominguez. He's an Argentina international and has entered the final year of his contract. So all happening at Nottingham Forest. Now, loads still to come. Newcastle are set to announce the signing of Lewis Hall very soon. We'll discuss that and Everton's need for a striker.
Hall from Chelsea. It's a £28 million deal. It's a loan with an obligation to buy next summer. There's £7 million in performance-related add-ons as well. Let's get the fans' perspective and speak to Newcastle Fans TV presenter Sam Mulliner. Sam, always good to see you. How excited are you by this signing?
Yeah, really excited. It's one that's caught me by surprise a little bit, in that why would Chelsea want to sell one of their standout performers last season, albeit in a very disappointing Chelsea side last season? But he's young, he's versatile, he'll bring an attacking threat from left back, which is something we don't currently have with Dan Burn, but that's not a criticism of him. Love Dan Burn. But yeah, there's no one better than Eddie Howe to nurture Lewis Hall's talent. Boyhood Newcastle fan as well, which helps. And it just goes to show we're not just building a team for now, but we're looking to the future as well.
Yeah, they all claim to be boyhood Newcastle fans, though, Sam. Let's be honest. I mean, so far, I know you very much trust the recruitment team at the club, don't you? Because Sandro Tonali and Harvey Barnes, they've impressed already. Just as well as all the ones from the last two windows as well.
Yeah, you got to throw Anthony Gordon in the mix as well. He's keeping Harvey Barnes out of the starting 11 at the moment. But yeah, really impressive debuts from Tonali and Harvey Barnes, both goals and assists from them. That form's obviously been boosted with Villa thrashing Everton at the weekend, and everything's looking very, very positive. I mean, Man City were our bogey team well before both teams got their takeovers, and yeah, to see the respect they gave us at the weekend, and there's plenty more to come as well from the likes of Tonali and Harvey Barnes and Tino Livramento as well, and Lewis Hall will fit in nicely, I think.
Yeah, I've never seen Erling Haaland being kept so quiet, which is a big compliment to the Newcastle defence. Do you think that once Hall is in, that will be it done in terms of incomings at St James's Park?
I think unless a deal arises that's just too good to turn down, I think incomings, I think we are done, yeah. There's still plenty to do in terms of outgoings. We've still got the likes of Ryan Fraser, who, 12, 18 months ago was still keeping Miguel Almiron out of the team. So he can still do a job elsewhere, but obviously things have fallen by the wayside for him at Newcastle. Jeff Hendrick can do a job in the Championship, and Isaac Hayden, who I'm still a big fan of Isaac Hayden. He's had horrific luck with injuries, but he can do a job, and he'd be a big asset for any Championship team or a team in the Premier League of that lower half trying to stay up. But yeah, incomings, I'd say that's probably it for now.
And then you've said that about that defeat to Manchester City on the weekend. You'll have seen plenty of signs to be confident this season. Where do you think that the aim is going to be? Is Champions League enough?
Is Champions League enough? Staying up was enough not so long ago. Yes, I think Champions League is enough. I think Phil Foden, a tremendous Phil Foden display, was the difference between the two sides, really. Like you mentioned there, Haaland was kept pretty quiet. Sven Botman and Fabian Schär did a tremendous job, I thought. I still think we can surprise a few going into the Champions League as well. Look, the Liverpool game, they've got to come to St James's on Super Sunday. I think that's set to be a cracker as well. But going back to Man City, I think the reaction of the Man City players actually surprised me a bit. That victory meant a lot to them, and they know they were in a game, and they really had to work hard for the 3 points. So it was a kind of nice surprise in that we're getting a lot of respect from the top teams now.
Yeah, definitely. OK, Sam, great to speak to you. Thank you.
Cheers.
More breaking news just coming into us. This one we were expecting. Aymeric Laporte is expected to travel today to complete a transfer from Manchester City to Al Nassr. The club's agreed a deal worth £25 million. Laporte will have a medical next and agree terms on a 3-year deal and is ready to sign for them. So Aymeric Laporte leaving Manchester City. Let's ask the panel a quick question about Aymeric Laporte. And Dave, a quality player who maybe just Manchester City's success means that he's just no longer needed.
I can't believe that no one else has come in and picked him up. I think the spend on the transfer fee there is actually a very reasonable price. Now, obviously, teams in the Premier League and teams around Europe might not be able to match the wages on offer to him that he's been offered, but it's a really shrewd pickup for other clubs, I would say. I'm surprised no one's come in for him.
Well, Arsenal were linked to him, weren't they, at one point? But I think Manchester City have learnt from their lesson last season and when they sold Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus to Arsenal and how much they improved them to the point where Arsenal nearly pipped them to the Premier League title. So I think they've learned in that case. So I'm not surprised he hasn't gone to Arsenal. They were the only club, really, we knew that were in for him. But like Dave says, someone of Aymeric Laporte, he's brilliant. He's still young for a footballer. So I'm really disappointed that we're losing someone of his, of how good he is to Saudi Arabia. I think he has so much to offer still in this country and at the highest level. I think it's just really disappointing.
Yeah, it's Aymeric Laporte on his way to the Saudi Pro League. Right, now we're going to talk about Everton in a moment, but after the break, we're going to be doing our feature of forgotten men. Let me explain that to you. Sometimes you hear a player's name and you think, I'd forgotten they were still at that club, probably because they've been injured for a long time, or maybe they've been out on loan abroad and have come back and they are still at that club right now. So if you can think of any, get in touch, #TransferTalk on Twitter, because our panel have all picked a player each for that. But now to Everton, their poor start to the season continued, a 4-0 defeat to Aston Villa yesterday. The search for a striker goes on. The club remain in talks with Southampton over a deal for striker Che Adams. They've made a bid worth £12 million. OK, so there's a striker on the horizon, it would appear, David. Do they need more than that?
Well, if you take yesterday's performance in isolation, then absolutely, yes. I know Everton fans were quite buoyed and positive, despite being beaten on the opening weekend of the season as well by Fulham, because they played pretty well in that game. But it's kind of all come crashing down a little bit after the game yesterday. And I guess that view that they were poor was reflected by Sean Dyche as well. So it's not just, fans or anybody else. The manager recognising the fact that his side were very poor yesterday. They've lost Dominic Calvert-Lewin seemingly again now. He played behind closed doors in a friendly in the week and he came in at the start. And all eyes were on him because we know about his injury history and he's had such a tough time. And then for him to go off, that's such a blow, not just for the club, but for him personally as well. We're obviously waiting to find out the extent of this cheekbone injury, but hopefully for his sake, hopefully for Everton's sake, it's an impact injury and it can be managed and he can come back pretty quickly from that if he's kind of passing all the concussion protocols too. But not only him as well, Alex Iwobi went off in the game yesterday and he was pretty positive. He was a strong outlet down the left-hand side, particularly in the first half for Everton in that game. Everton need players back from injury. Dwight McNeil, when he comes back, Jack Harrison, newly signed, when he comes back, yes, they will be stronger. But I think, as you say, they're looking at Che Adams. They do need help in those forward positions. And I think probably Everton fans might be tuning in this morning thinking, actually, defensively, there might be a few issues as well after yesterday, particularly if there's an injury to James Tarkowski, who's undoubtedly Everton's best centre-back. So Sean Dyche said yesterday, look, they need to look internally for solutions as well. I think he'll be trying to get them organised to try and get that consistency of results, consistency of performances back, because yesterday wasn't pretty.
Olivia, you like the idea of Che Adams for Everton?
Yeah, I do. I think with the Calvert-Lewin one, I think it's not a muscle injury. I think if it was a muscle injury, there'd be so many more questions about his fitness. But like Dave says, he could wear a mask. We've seen that happen with facial injuries before. But I really, really like Che Adams. He scored 10 goals for Southampton last season. And when you compare that to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I know he missed a lot of the season through injury. He scored 2. Alex Iwobi scored 2. Damari Gray scored 6. And Neil Maupay scored 1. So 10 goals in all competitions for Southampton is way better than what Everton currently have. He scored 3 goals in his opening 3 games in the Championship. 12 million in this day and age in the transfer market is a steal. No, Everton don't have money to spend, but that's not a lot of money. And I think that would be a really, really smart signing for Everton in an area which they desperately, desperately need. Yeah, and James,
Sean Dyche did actually allude to it in the post-match interview that they haven't got a lot of money to spend. Why not? This is a kind of historical transfer windows coming back to bite them. Yeah, a lot of these problems date back to 2016 when Farhad Moshiri took ownership of the club. He backed his managers and we can see some of the signings they made since 2016. And in their first summer, actually, with the new owners, Ronald Koeman was given 145 million to spend. But you can see some of the selected signings. There's plenty more than that, plenty over 20 or 30 million pounds. And the issue is they've spent inflated sums on players, which we can see there, who have either underperformed or haven't been sold for a profit, and some are actually left for free. You look at Yerry Mina, who left in the summer, Theo Walcott, Cenk Tosun left. And then when you look at their net spend, it's quite significant, £316 million. And what's quite interesting about that is they really tightened their purse strings in the last few seasons. Rafa Benitez, Frank Lampard and now Sean Dyche haven't been given
a huge amount of money to spend. And because that net spend is so high, because they have spent so much on transfers, it does leave the club quite vulnerable when it comes to financial fair play. They've made losses of more than 430 million over the last 5 years. And under Premier League rules, over a 3-year period, you can't lose more than £105 million. So they're in a situation they're trying to finance a new stadium. That's going to cost at least £550 million. They're battling with financial fair play constraints. But crucially, they're trying to cling on in a division where they've only just stayed up on the last game week or two of the Premier League seasons in the last few years. So they're really balancing a tricky tightrope at the moment when they're trying to do all those three things whilst retaining their Premier League status, which after the first 2 weekends of the season looks like it could be another challenging season for Sean Dyche and his side.
Right, OK, James, thank you. Now, coming up, we're asking for your forgotten men of players that's struggling to get into the first team and may need to move away in the next 11 days and 13 and a half hours. Time for a popular feature that we like to throw into the transfer windows. It's Forgotten Men. We look through Premier League squads to see who could do with a move away because they're just not featuring. That's why they're forgotten men, of course, but it could be because of an injury, frozen out by a previous manager, maybe returning from a loan spell that they had last season. Right, Dave, who have you gone for?
I think I've got the ultimate forgotten man. 6 Premier League appearances in 4 years, and he cost £25 million. Everton signed Jean-Philippe Gbamin from Mainz in August 2019. And I know he's had absolutely rotten luck with injuries. And you said in your intro about players who could do with a move away. He doesn't just could do with a move away. He absolutely needs a move away. And Everton need him to move away as well, by all accounts. He's had thigh surgery. And when he came back, then he did his Achilles and needed an Achilles surgery as well. He was originally signed as a replacement for Idrissa Gueye, and he's been out that long that Everton have re-signed Idrissa Gueye. And he spent the end of last season on loan in Turkey with Trabzonspor. He's not even back with Everton at the moment. Sean Dyche said ahead of the Villa game on Friday that he's not involved with the squad. He's not on Merseyside with the club, so he absolutely needs a move away.
Yeah, and now that we've kind of explained it a bit more, the viewers now can maybe understand the rules and tweet in #transfer talk, and Nick's already done that. He says, Donny van der Beek, who we actually discussed earlier on, didn't we, this morning. Does anyone know what's happening with him? I was excited when he joined, but he's never got a look in. I hope he gets a move and regular football in this window. So that's from Nick talking about Donny van der Beek. Dave's gone for Jean-Philippe Gbamin. Olivia, who have you gone for?
I've gone for Malang Sarr. Chelsea signed him back in 2020, and he was, a centre-back. He was 21. I think, people were talking about him like he was, not one of the next best things, but he had potential, I think. He was loaned out straight away. He actually played quite a lot for Chelsea in the following season. He made 21 appearances, and there was a really good performance in a 1-0 defeat against Man City back in January 2022. But he was the bright spark, and Chelsea fans were looking at that as that was really positive. The following season, he went on loan to Monaco, made only 12 starts, got injured, then came back to Chelsea in the summer, but early from his loan. Now, we don't really know where he is. He's still at the club. But there was rumours of him during this transfer window, really early on in the transfer window, that he might be going to Strasbourg, which is Chelsea's sister club. But nothing transpired, and now he's at Cobham somewhere, but we just don't know where. Yeah,
from that quick bit of research I've just done while you were talking, I don't think he's been given a squad number, along with Callum Hudson-Odoi and Romelu Lukaku, who we know are available, aren't they? So Malang Sarr there. Chelsea, it used to be that we actually could do loads of forgotten
I'm thinking about, it used to be like Lucas Paqueta, Baba Rahman, Timmy Bakayoko, Ethan Ampadu.
Yeah.
But now, Reece James is our longest-serving player, so Gars doesn't go back very far.
They've cut that down, haven't they? And James, you've gone for another, a big money one you've gone for.
Yeah, £72 million Arsenal paid in 2019 for Lucas Paqueta. He's still there. He's not started in the Premier League for them for 2 years. Last year he was on loan at Nice, and the club are now looking, and they have been looking for a while, at viable exit routes for him. One option could be a mutual termination of his contract. He's got a year left on his contract, so it's somebody who simply hasn't worked out for Arsenal at all. But what is quite interesting is if Arsenal were to sign somebody else in this window, it would be somebody to try and compete with Bukayo Saka as a right-sided attacking player. Well, they have one there they spent £72 million on, but simply isn't in favour at all. But when Arsenal are able to offload him, it will spell the end of an era, because that will be the last high transfer fee Arsenal have paid for a player pre-Mikel Arteta. They've now been able to offload. So despite the fact they're making a huge loss on him, it's not worked out at all. It will be the end of a chapter, and I think Arsenal have shown in the last few years how savvy they have been with recruitment and what they did sort of 2018. You mentioned some of the players before they signed with Lacazette, Aubameyang. Yes, they had some success, but now all the signings they're bringing in, especially in recent years, have been successful ones. Just a shame Pepe in 2019 didn't quite deliver. And for so long, he has been Arsenal's record signing until Declan Rice signed this summer.
Yeah, and everyone at home, #transfer talk if you think of anyone, because it does take a bit of thinking time, doesn't it, to come up with someone. Get in touch. We might read out more later on in this show, or from 1 p.m. when we return for transfer talk. But now Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola is still hoping that Bernardo Silva signs a new deal with the club. After losing Ilkay Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, Guardiola is keen to see Silva stay.
There was some talk last week that Bernardo is ready to sign a new contract. Is that what you believe as well?
Will be my dream, like Kyle. Hopefully it happens.
Think it will?
For the deep of my heart, for the bottom of my heart, it's my wish, yeah.
Right, so that's on Bernardo Silva, David. If we look at the Manchester City squad this season compared to last season, what's the difference? Has he strengthened Pep Guardiola?
I would say it's difficult for people to argue that Manchester City are stronger personnel-wise this year than they were last year. They've lost, you mentioned Mahrez, Gundogan, I think they played a combined 5,000 minutes, something like that, in the Premier League last season. Obviously, Mateo Kovacic has come in, different type of player to Ilkay Gundogan. He's not going to score you the goals that Ilkay Gundogan did for Manchester City. He's not going to have that kind of late box presence that Gundogan managed to do on such a regular occasion for Manchester City, so a different type of player. Riyad Mahrez as well hasn't been replaced. I know that City were looking at Michael Elise, but that's now a no-go area because he's signed that new contract to Crystal Palace. Josko Vardiol looked fantastic against Newcastle, just almost like he'd played there for the last 5 years. It was seamless almost that he's come in. So yeah, I mean, when you look at their defensive options, you would say they look good. Upgrading on Laporte with Vardiol is a terrific piece of business for Manchester City, but there's no wonder that he's really keen to keep hold of Kyle Walker and really keen to keep hold of Bernardo Silva, because they are such experienced operators. They know exactly what's required, and he'll be really, really desperate to keep hold of those two.
In terms of people coming in, Olivia, in central midfield, we know that they were targeting Lucas Paqueta. That deal is off for now anyway, so do you think they might move on to another target?
Yeah, I think so. I think they lost so much, as Dave says, in Ilkay Gundogan. 11 goals and 7 assists for City last season, and that's not even to mention his goals in the seasons before that. But also, he's one of City's big game players. He popped up with big goals in such crucial moments. And Mateo Kovacic, I'm a big admirer of Mateo Kovacic. I've watched him at Chelsea since 2018, and I really like what he offers, but he is such a different player to Ilkay Gundogan. He scored 6 goals in his entire Chelsea career. So he's not similar in any way to Ilkay Gundogan. And I think with KDB as well getting injured and him playing in midfield, we know how big of a loss that is to Man City's midfield. So I think Pep Guardiola is just looking for someone that offers similar to what Ilkay Gundogan offers. It's hard to find because of just how brilliant the German is, but they'll definitely want a player who can add goals and assists from that midfield, definitely.
And with that, though, have they got players already in that squad who can do that, James?
I think they do. At the moment, they are struggling a little bit for squad depth. Some of that due to injury with Kevin De Bruyne, with John Stones. Bernardo Silva missed the game with illness. But Pep didn't make a single substitute on Saturday. I know, much to one fan's dismay, they had a bit of an altercation, a funny altercation on Saturday, and only made one substitute in the Super Cup final as well. So they are struggling for options at the moment. They had 6 players on the bench yesterday under the age of 22. But Pep does like to work with a small squad. He doesn't like to have players for the sake of having them. But when you look at Rico Lewis, already featured this season, Cole Palmer scored 2 goals in finals already. So, and he's a player you'd hope from an English point of view, somebody coming from the academy, you'd hope that he'd get an opportunity, especially after Riyad Mahrez left. There is a bit of a vacancy on that right-hand flank. And I think what was really encouraging was Phil Foden's performance against Man City on Saturday, because it looks like Kevin De Bruyne, initially we thought 3 to 4 months, it could potentially be 6 months. So there is an opportunity for Phil Foden to play in a slightly more central role, maybe make that role his own. So I don't think Man City are desperate for additions, but I think, as Dave said, it's very difficult to make the argument that they're in the position they were in last season when they did so much and won the treble.
Yeah, we've got some, while you've been talking there, we've got some more forgotten men coming in. Keep these coming in, by the way, because we like this. Pedram says, Eric Bailly is a curious case in this window, once a promising signing for Manchester United. Geordie Highlander says, my forgotten man is fairly new, but Matt Targett, because he lost his place last season to Dan Burn. Now, of course, Newcastle are about to sign Lewis Hall as well, so he's gone for Matt Targett. And AM says David De Gea, of course, released by Manchester United, yet to find a new club. We've been putting you in our free transfer 11. He's still in it because he hasn't signed for a club. But keep those coming in throughout the day here. I've got some breaking news from Everton, but it's an outgoing. They've agreed a fee with Al Shabab for the winger Damari Gray. However, the player won't leave until a replacement is found. Sean Dyche is keen to bring players in before the deadline. The number of injuries, including Dwight McNeil, Alex Iwobi and recent signing Jack Harrison, with those players out, the club can't afford to weaken the squad any further. So Damari Gray, although a fee has been agreed with Al Shabab, he won't be going anywhere until a replacement is signed or these players come back from injury. Next, we'll review how some of the Premier League's latest signings got on at the weekend. Time to review how some of the latest signings got on this weekend in the Premier League, and we start with someone who's impressed you, James, from Liverpool.
Yeah, no goals or assists for him at the weekend, but a man-of-the-match performance from Dominic Szoboszlai. And when you look at his statistics during the match, you can see why he received that award. He was offering plenty from an attacking point of view. Dribbling was so impressive. Creativity was really interesting as well. He'll be a real threat from set pieces as well. And he won that penalty in dubious circumstances, I guess, which Salah missed, but then converted the rebound. And he was really important in helping Liverpool recover from what was a really difficult start to the game. 10 minutes into the match, they were 1-0 down, and they looked a little bit all over the place. And having sold 5 players or let 5 players go, senior midfielders, in the summer, you can see why he's somebody who's going to come in and make a real impact on the right side of midfield. I think it's important to mention Wataru Endo came on with half an hour to go, and Jurgen Klopp admitted himself that he had absolutely no clue what to do because he'd not been there. He'd only been there for 2 days. He said he slept a lot, but he came to the club and he offered and threw everything at that match and ensured that Liverpool did hold on with 10 men.
Olivia, you've already upset Luton fans today. You would have upset Liverpool fans if we'd let you say what you wanted to say there about Dominic Szoboszlai. Right, Dave.
Ref watch 11:30.
Yeah, ref watch, yeah.
I think it's a good job Olivia isn't presenting that today, actually. Dave, you've gone for someone who, selfishly, I was quite happy that he's left the Championship.
I'm sure, yeah. Gus Harmer, I watched him a lot for Coventry in the Championship. Sheffield United fans are going to absolutely love him. He's a talismanic character. He is a box-to-box, fantastic midfielder, great touch, and he scored an absolute worldie as well against Nottingham Forest. I know, Sheffield United were on the wrong end of that game, but he really showed a little bit of what he's about. I think it'll take him a little bit of time to get used to the speed of the Premier League. We saw that maybe a couple of times in that game, but he's going to be a real fans' favourite. Really impressed with him for Sheffield United. I think he's going to be a great signing.
Yeah, him and Victor Gyökeres last season for Coventry, they were too good for the Championship, as simple as that. And sadly are no longer in the Championship. Olivia, you've gone for a goalkeeper. Yeah,
I've gone for Spurs' Vicario. He obviously signed from Empoli in the summer, and he got quite harshly judged after just a couple of pre-season games. Fans got onto his back, but I think that's safe to say that has turned around now. He had big gloves to fill, I would say, in Hugo Lloris, even though a lot of Spurs fans, I think, perhaps thought it was maybe time for Hugo Lloris to go, but he got his first clean sheet. There you go, save percentage of 100% against Manchester United. 6 saves there, but the couple of headers from Rafael Varane and the one from Casemiro sort of tipped over the bar. I think he was absolutely brilliant, and I thought he was very composed with the ball at his feet as well. So definitely really positive. A positive home debut, the first time playing in front of all those Spurs fans. So he can take a lot of confidence from that performance.
Well, there's plenty of other stories to bring you up to date with. Let's get through as many as we can. Alexander Mitrovic has made the move from Fulham to Al Hilal for a club record deal. In a statement, Fulham said the club had reluctantly accepted a revised offer as the player had consistently made his desire to leave well known. OK, so that's an outgoing at Fulham, James. What do they need now in the next 11 days? Yeah, well, this news was confirmed just following their game against Brentford. Marco Silva came into his post-match press conference and said, we need 4 or 5 new players. There's a lot of work for them to do over the next 11 days of this window. He said that the £45 million, which they'll be getting for Mitrovic, potentially more, it'll be reinvested, but finding a new striker is going to be pretty difficult. And they've signed Bassi, Jimenez and Adama Traore was on a free in recent time, but having lost Mitrovic, a number of players were on loan last season, a lot of senior players have left the club as well. You do understand Marco Silva's frustration. I think he speaks his mind when it comes to the transfer window, and I think Fulham fans will be slightly concerned with the situation they find themselves in. Already 2 matches into the season, they've lost a man who's done so much for them over the last 5 years. Well, Wolfsburg are interested in taking Wolves striker Hwan Hee-chan. Right, so Dave, that would be another forward option depleted for Wolves. Can they afford to lose him?
I don't think so. I think it would take a big offer for Wolves to consider a sale. I think there are players who Wolves would sell in this transfer window, but I don't think Hwang, it would be one of them if Wolves had it their way. I think, obviously, if a big offer came in, they might decide to change their mind a little bit. But I think from Gary O'Neill's point of view, he'll be looking to keep hold of as many players as he can at this point, given the fact that he hasn't and he won't have much money to spend for the rest of this transfer window. Players who are for sale, I think Daniel Podence is probably one of them. Gary O'Neill said after the game that, well, he didn't really want to talk about him, essentially, even though we know that Podence is training away from the first team squad. So he would be one who I think would be up for sale for Wolves, but I think it would take a huge offer Wolves to consider Hwang leaving.
Well, Tyler Adams is now a Bournemouth player. It's 8 new signings for them this summer. Olivia, how impressed have you been with their business?
Yeah, I have been. So just to run you through the 8, Justin Kluivert, Romain Fav, Milos Kerkez, Andre Radu, Alex Scott, Max Aarons and Tyler Adams are now their 8 signings. But I think it's a really nice mix of players who've got experience in English football and players who've got experience in European football. We all know what Max Aarons brings. We watched him in the Premier League, gets up and down, and he was linked to a move back to the Premier League a couple of times before Bournemouth. Milos Kerkez is a Hungarian international. And he played for Milan in his early days, but went over to AZ Alkmaar to get some regular playing time. He's been called up to the Hungarian first team. And this is his 6th nation now at just 19 years old. 6 different cultures, 6 different languages. Very, very impressive. And obviously Alex Scott as well, signed from Bristol City last season. And when Pep Guardiola and Man City played against him, Pep Guardiola described him as an unbelievable player. Now, he's, of course, injured, but he should be back after the international break. And I think that's probably why they signed Tyler Adams as well, because of Alex Scott's injury. But both of them together in midfield is a pretty good option. And I really like all the signings Bournemouth have done. They knew they needed to improve again to, continue their stay in the Premier League. But I really like Tyler Adams as well, who's linked to a big club like Chelsea. And I think it's a really smart business from them this summer.
Yeah, they've gone about their business quietly. Dave, very quickly, Luton have made an inquiry about Javert Tanganga from Tottenham. Does the player need a fresh start?
He's been looking for either minutes or a fresh start for the last couple of years, hasn't he? Hopefully, from his point of view, he'll get a resolution. He loves Tottenham. He would love to play for Tottenham, but it feels like that door might be closing for him.
OK, right. Well, Good Morning Transfers returns tomorrow at 9 a.m. But we are back before that. Remember that on a Monday, Transfer Talk isn't at midday, it's at 1 o'clock, but we are still joined by European football expert Kevin Hatchard. And tonight there is 2 transfer shows as well. There's one at 5 p.m. and there's one at 7 p.m. as well. We have had loads of breaking news throughout this show, in fact. But next, it is the football show, the Sue Smith, the Stephen Warnock, and of course, Ref Watch is returning. That one will be at 11:30. We're all back at 1.